Good morning. Welcome to United States Sports Academy and our weekly sports talk program. Today I have with me Mr. Ben Billman, one of our teaching assistants here, and Dr. Brett Simmermacher, our chair of sports coaching. I'm Steve Butler. I'll be your host today. And today we're really honored to have a special guest with us today, Matthew Graves, the head basketball coach at the University of South Alabama. Thank you so much for coming, Matt.
Okay, thank you.
Go Jags.
Go Jags.
Brett played baseball at South. We're getting ready to play the Final Four, and today Ben and I went and looked at the schedules for a whole bunch of teams, and using the transitive property of basketball, we found a way that you could get the University of South Alabama was better than all four teams that are in the Final Four. So I think they got robbed by not being one of the 64 teams.
I'll second that.
And oh, by the way, Ben and I were also talking about this morning. Neither one of us have ever been to a game that you lost, so we probably need to have some.
I need to get some season tickets over there in a hurry. Yeah, that'd be great.
We were all three there for the Texas Arlington game. That was a great game.
Yeah.
Overtime, you beat them guys after they'd beaten Ohio State and Memphis, and went overtime with Texas. Anyway, Brett, you have a question you want to ask Coach?
I do. Coach, since we get a lot of students that might watch this, and you and I talked a little bit down the hallway, just explain your story of how you got involved with major college basketball.
Well, I was very fortunate to play at Butler University as a student athlete. Upon graduation, was able to find a job as a high school teacher and coach. Started off as the freshman A and B coach, and it's one of those deals where you're practicing late at night and you get the last scrap of gym time, and but it's great. You have a job and you're working, and I was able to be in coaching for 3 years at the high school level. And after my third year, and I was actually going to make about $40,000, and
that was back in 2000.
2000.
That wasn't too bad of a salary.
Yeah, and had a chance to go back to Butler University as the director of ops. And at the time I was married with no kids, and the salary was going to be $19,000. So I had to look my wife in the eye and beg and plead and say, can we cut our salary in half, for me to chase my dreams? And she was very fortunate to give her blessing. And I think that's very important to understand that it's not easy getting in the coaching business, and you want to be with good people, and you want to do it the right way. And it's hard. Jobs are hard to find, and you have to beat the bushes. Sometimes you have to volunteer, and you can't be afraid to do the dirty work, pick up trash and help at camps and volunteer, and all that kind of stuff really leads you into an opportunity. It doesn't guarantee you anything, but you got to be willing to go into it with an open mind. And I was very fortunate to be hired by Coach Licklider in the ops position, and it's worked out well since.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Yes, a lot of our students think they're going to come here and get a bachelor's degree in sports coaching, and then walk out the door, and somebody will call them and say, "Hey, we got an opening.
we got a job on the sideline for the Jets.
Yeah,
can you come?"
Ben, you have a question?
Yeah, I would like to talk. When you were at Butler, you coached in the Final Four 2 times, in 2010 and 2011. 2010 was in Indianapolis, which is just minutes away from Butler's campus. Can you kind of describe that whole run and how that Final Four just went for your team?
Well, yeah, I can, because it's still, to this day, I can picture this one moment I'm going to describe. But let me back up. When you're in the NCAA tournament, it's game after game, and you're just really caught in the moment of playing that particular game. And I remember, we played UTEP that year. We won that game, and Murray State happened to upset Vandy that year. So we were scrambling around, got info on Murray State. We won that game. Then you're off to Utah, and you're playing Syracuse at the time, and then Kansas State. So you're just caught in the moment, and there's really, in the back of your mind, the Final Fours in Indianapolis, but that never once came up in the conversation. it was, how we're going to beat UTEP, how we're going to beat Murray State, then Syracuse, then Kansas State. And this is the moment I'll never forget. I'm standing in Indianapolis. We're getting ready to go onto the practice floor for our open practice on Friday, and standing there with Micah Shrewsbury, who was one of the assistant coaches at the time. And I just looked at him. I remember saying, holy cow. We're about to practice here in front of 30,000 people at the Final Four. And we just kind of both looked at each other and just wanted that moment. It's like, it's unbelievable.
Come around often.
Yeah.
It doesn't. And to follow that up, after we lost in the championship game to Duke, I remember walking in the back hallway, the big long hallway, to our bus, and walked back out onto the court and just kind of looked around. And in my mind, I was like, I hope I get to do this one more time. And
had to wait a whole year.
we had to wait a whole year. So, I'm greedy. I want to get back there again, because it's something that you truly, it's hard to describe. It's hard to put in words, but just that feeling. And I'll never forget that feeling of standing in that hallway, waiting to walk out there to practice in front of 30,000 people, in your hometown.
Mm-hmm.
Something I'll never forget.
That's pretty nice.
Yeah.
She's got a question. Go ahead, Sarah. One of our viewers has a question, so we'll go ahead and let her.
What is your strategy to build relationships with high school coaches in Alabama and surrounding area?
That's a great question. And I think one of the things that we're trying to do more is, originally when we got here, my staff were new to the area. We reached out and were able to go and see some games and slowly build up steam and kind of introduce ourselves to the people down here. And I think this year we took a giant step in that role. We sent out mass emails to invite coaches and their teams to come to games. And this year we had a record attendance, if you will, from different teams and coaches that came out and watched us play. All of our practices are open to college or to high school coaches and middle school coaches, and we've had some area coaches come in and take us up on that. And our door is always open, so we're going to do more inviting and really try to set up actually a coaching clinic here this fall is one of the things that's next on our docket, to kind of bring the coaches in the area closer and open our door even more at South Alabama.
Do you have the opportunity to do like team camps? I know that's a big thing now.
Yeah, one of the things we're trying right now, we do 2 weeks of little kids individual camp for 2nd through 8th grade. And then we have one Saturday where we do a college prep camp. What we'd like to do is expand that and do a team camp, but we've really struggled with finding play dates. In the state of Alabama, the coaches on the basketball side, in my opinion, are somewhat limited to what they're allowed to do, and it's
Wouldn't have anything to do with football, would it?
well, that's the rumor, and I can sense their frustration, and so it's been really hard to get a team camp going. But that's something that we would like to do in the future. It's not on the docket this summer, but it's something that we would like to explore moving forward, because it's really nice to have coaches through, and especially when they can come to practice and get a chance to visit with them.
Great. Going back to the championship game with Duke for a second, when the ball was in the air from where you were sitting, did you think it was good?
Hoosiers Part 2. Yeah, well, they were. It was ready. It was a movie set to be made again.
Yeah.
You just felt like that. It was destiny. It was going to happen, and when it doesn't go in, it's.
Ben and I were talking about that this morning. If it would have went in, it would be without a doubt the greatest shot in NCAA.
No question.
history.
Yeah, absolutely. It would have been.
It looked good from on my TV set for 99% of the way.
Well, I think one of these days, hopefully, ESPN Films will do a 30 for 30 on those back-to-back, NCAA tournament runs that Butler had, and what a way what a way to end that if that shot goes in.
Let me ask you a question. We get ready to go to the ABC, American Basketball Coaches Conference. If they came to you on the first day of the conference and said, you're in charge, you can do anything you want, what do you think is the ideal situation for like what we have now with the one and done? Like in baseball, you can go after high school, but if you go to college, you have to stay for 3 years. In football, you can't play in the NFL until 3 years after your class graduates.
Mm-hmm.
What would you think would be the ideal situation for college basketball?
I think the ideal situation, and now let me back up. I do not like the one and done scenario. I think most of those kids that are one and done, they should be afforded the opportunity to go ahead and just go be a professional. That's what you want to do. A lot of those kids, and I don't want to say all, but a lot of those kids, they don't have an ambition to get a 4-year college degree. Now some do, and that's great.
Mm-hmm.
But I think any student athlete that enrolls in a college, they should be required to stay 2 years. I think that's a fair number.
Kind of just like a JUCO.
Yeah, and it's just like going to a junior college. So I think a 2-year time frame is what should be required, because these kids that are only going 1 year, the classes that they are enrolled in and what they're having to do to just meet requirements to stay eligible, a lot of times is very laughable.
Mm-hmm.
at the courses that they're taking to keep them eligible. And all they really have to do is be eligible for that fall semester, because as soon as they're eligible in the fall semester to play in the spring, so what if they flunk out in the spring,
Mm-hmm.
or if they just barely make it through? So I think having that 2-year window will better hold schools accountable as well as the student athlete.
2 years. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Kentucky would have won 5 more national championships.
Yeah.
Maybe so, yeah.
Yeah.
You have anything,
Yep.
Sarah?
Yeah,
two
two questions.
Okay.
First question is your assessment of Little Rock, since they're in your conference,
Yep.
and their success, and did you see that in them when you played them, and are you surprised at all with
Okay.
their success?
I think the Sun Belt Conference as a whole is very underrated. Last year with Georgia State, they beat Baylor in the first round. Ron Hunter, his son RJ is playing in the NBA. Even before that, Elfrid Payton is playing in the NBA from Louisiana Lafayette. And then you get to Little Rock, their success, winning 30 games, obviously that's somewhat surprising. But I think it just goes to show that if you get a group of individuals, and they really had a rotation of about 7 or 8 guys that really bought in. They understood the idea of team. They were very tough, and Coach Beard, did a great job X and O and motivating those kids. Anything's possible, and I was shocked. I'll admit that they beat Purdue. I thought Purdue's size would give them a lot of problems, but I think you have to really credit Little Rock's toughness and determination. And their senior Josh Hagans really stepped up and made a lot of great plays down the stretch for them. And hats off to them. And I think it's great for the Sun Belt.
Yeah, I heard you on the radio right before the Sun Belt Conference, and I can't remember which show you were on, but they asked you if Little Rock got upset in the tournament, did you think that you would get 2 teams? And you said no.
Yeah.
You said that you thought only the tournament champion would get to go, which is kind of sad because one of the commentators on ESPN, I can't remember which one it was after Little Rock won the first game. He said, "What you got to remember is these kids have won 30 games this year. They expect to win. They know how to win, and something to be said for these teams to do well in the early rounds of the tournament because they have one team started 3 seniors and 2 juniors."
Absolutely. And the problem is the system is flawed for how it's selected.
Yeah.
It is skewed, obviously, to the BCS programs because you make the argument of top 50 wins or getting a chance to improve your resume. Well, Little Rock, once they hit conference play, they don't have a chance to get any more top 50 wins. Right. That's just the reality of being in the Sun Belt. We don't have teams that are necessarily going to be in the top 50. Now, we have some top 100, which is great. Mm-hmm. But other schools have a chance to get more wins. They'll play, 12, 14, 15, 18 games against top 50 schools, both at home and away.
Yeah.
Any chance we get to play a top 50 school, it's going to be on the road or maybe at a neutral site if we're lucky. We will, I don't want to say never, but 99% chance that we will not play a top 50 school at the Mitchell Center. And that's just not South Alabama. That's for most, low to mid-major programs throughout the country. They just don't have those opportunities. And that's why I think it's flawed.
If you're scheduling for Little Rock, good luck getting somebody to come to your place next year.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm sure like back in 2012, after 2 times in a row, good luck getting somebody to come to Butler to play.
It's extremely difficult. And, I think a great example right now is in the NIT, school, Valparaiso.
Yeah.
They could have easily made the argument of being in the NCAA tournament. And, they're on the cusp of winning the, postseason NIT. I know they're in the championship game. And any one of those 4 teams that made that Final Four, San Diego State, George Washington, BYU, all 4 of those teams could easily make arguments for being in the NCAA tournament. And they're somewhat handicapped because none of those 4 schools were really afforded the opportunity to play enough top 50 teams. And that's just the reality of it.
Right. And I'm one of those who does not believe that Syracuse has justified their selection. I still don't think they should have been in. You have a question?
Well, I don't know if you're allowed to talk about it with NCAA rules, but are you done recruiting this year?
Yes, I can
How's
talk
your team
just
looking?
generally.
Yeah.
We had 4 open scholarships, and we signed a young man in the fall who I can talk about, Kevin Morris from Dothan, Alabama.
He's 6'8".
6'8", about 240, 250. Really excited about him. He had about anywhere from 25 to 30 offers, and we battled some teams and
some good competition.
some good competition. We're really excited about Kevin joining our program, and we have since we've got commitments from 2 other kids, and then also this past week a commitment from a 3rd that's a transfer student. And I cannot talk about those 3 kids,
Right.
but they will all the 2 high school kids will sign with us in April, and the transfer kid, they don't really sign anything, but we're really excited about this recruiting class, and I think it's the best one that we've had so far. Not to take anything away from last year's class, but I think what we're trying to do is each year keep bringing in a better recruiting class, and I think we got a better fit.
I saw somebody on TV said that Oklahoma has had 4 of their players have started 104 consecutive games together. So
Wow.
you don't get that with the one and done.
No, you don't, and that's the thing I'm really excited about our team next year is you've got Ken Williams and Georgie Boynov who have been here since I started. So we've got 2 guys that have been in the program going on into their 4th year. There are 2 leading returning scorers, and we actually return our 4 leading returning scorers. So the future is very bright, and we're going to be able to show the fruits of kind of some hard days. Nobody likes being below 500, and I can assure you that better times are coming, and we've got a roster that's starting to stabilize itself. We didn't have that mass exodus of guys this year that last year, guys transferring and leaving and getting homesick and all that stuff. The roster's starting to stabilize, and I'm really excited about where we're going to be here in the future.
And I think what people need to understand, it's not just basketball. I mean,
Right.
I coached college baseball.
Yes.
It's the same way, folks. Kids think the way they're going to think, and they're a lot different now than they used to be. You just don't see kids that want to work if they're told you're not good enough right now.
Yeah, and it happens. You're right. It's not just in basketball. It's in every sport. But even in basketball, my good friend Thad Mott at Ohio State, he lost 3 kids this week to transfers, and he lost 1 back at Christmas time. So he's had 4 kids transfer out this year, and you're right. It's just the way kids think today.
And I'm a Buckeye, so I follow that stuff.
Yeah. being an Auburn guy, I don't like to give Nick Saban credit for too many things, but I heard him say something during football recruiting that was so true, and I'm sure you guys in baseball and you in basketball, Matt, have seen this. The one thing Nick said was, the one thing you can never guess is what a kid's going to be like away from mom.
Yeah, right. Yep. And I think that has a big factor. And that's a great point because, with our recruiting, we've tried to regionalize it a little bit more, even from when I first started here. And I think you get that impact from a regional kid. They may take a little bit more pride in the program in your area. And then I think as you grow your brand, then you can branch out a little bit more. So I think that's one of the mistakes that I made initially in recruiting, is that we didn't focus enough, regionally within a, let's say a 3-hour radius. And obviously you can't do a radius in Mobile, or half of it's in the water, but, but really concentrating on, recruiting, the Panhandle and up, through Birmingham and over to New Orleans, and really focusing on that first and then branching out as needed after. And I think we've really made some headways in that area.
You have a question, Sarah?
Okay.
Sorry. No, that's all right.
What are your feelings about the UConn women's team and them dominating women's basketball? Do you want both questions?
No,
That's just one at a time.
I'll tell you, that obviously is a hot button question from what the one reporter from Boston said, that they're ruining the game. And I completely agree with Coach Oriema's assessment. I think it's going to raise the level of play in women's basketball. And, as a coach, I think it's something that you have to look back and really appreciate what they're doing and how they're able to recruit. And it's really more than recruiting. Yes, they're getting the cream of the crop, but if you read stuff about their program, it's their approach and it's how they're doing things and it's their process and it's how they challenge kids. And I know people, get upset at, they're winning by 40 and 50 points. But, my point to that is, what do you want? You want him to put in their second five and tell them not to play as hard, or to not run the plays? You've got to play basketball.
Yeah.
And, it's different. It's not little league. It's not recreation. And, I'm not a big proponent, and I see it all the time. And my daughters play CYO, and I see other teams pressing when they're up 20, trying to win by 40, and kids aren't learning anything. I think that's wrong at that age. But you're in college, and I think you play to the final horn. And we've been on the wrong side of it before. And, I've been frustrated that, we're getting beat by 20 with 2 minutes to go, and I'm still getting pressed, and they're still scoring. And you know what? We need to do something about it. We need to get better.
And the Mississippi State coach, after they lost by 60 in the Sweet 16, said kind of the same thing.
The women's coach.
He said, we all get All-Americans, but Gino coaches them better than the rest of us.
Yep, absolutely. That's great. That's great of him to say. I didn't see that. That's great.
My response to Dan Shaughnessy is that John Wooden didn't ruin men's college basketball in the 60s. You're too young to remember that. But I saw all those games when UCLA won 10 national championships in 12 years. And what it does is it forces everybody else to get better.
Yeah, and I think, the Coach Oriema made a great comparison using Tiger Woods as an analogy.
Sure.
I mean, he raised the level of golf, and there's a lot of good golfers now. And I think, is it going to be in the next 3 years or 5 years or 10 years? Nobody knows that. But I think over a certain period of time, you're going to see the level of the women's game, raised even more because of what UConn's doing right now. I think, we should sit back and appreciate it.
Well, look at the parity in men's basketball.
Yeah.
I mean, no offense, but Butler proved that.
Yeah.
They proved that. It happens baseball's the same way.
Yeah.
Women's basketball is going to catch up as well.
Well, when Gino first took over, he had to catch up with Pat Summitt in Tennessee.
Yeah.
And he did that. He caught him.
Yeah.
They were equal
great point.
for a while. Then he blew by him.
Yep, that's a great point.
Do you have another question, Sarah? One more.
Are you or any of your staff involved with local AAU coaches and teams?
We are not involved as far as we can't help out or do anything like that, but what we do is we communicate with local AAU people. We have phone conversations, and just like high school coaches, we invite them, over to our offices. They'll bring players by so they can tour campus and things like that. And our policy is we have an open door policy, and we want to invite local, not only high school coaches, but middle school coaches, AAU coaches, and want them to feel welcome, in our program.
I know Ben wants to ask you a question about the big three for the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, we talk about Golden State here a lot, and they're making the push for 73.
Yes.
And Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green are considered the big three of that team. You kind of have a unique perspective on those three. Can you talk a little bit about that? And when you talk about that, did you see anything in their games at that point that you thought, wow, these guys are going to be something special?
Okay. Well, the unique perspective, obviously, is we played all three of those in college, and I'll start with the one I remember the least.
Don't be modest. Tell people you beat them all.
Yeah, we did. We beat all three. Draymond, when he was at Michigan State, I'll be completely candid, I don't really remember him. I don't remember.
That was the Final Four.
That was in the Final
Yeah.
Four, and here's part of the reason I don't totally remember that is I was assigned the Duke scout,
Okay.
so I did not have the game prep for Michigan State. So I wasn't as focused on Michigan State as I was getting everything prepared for Duke. But obviously, the thing I admire about Draymond is first and foremost his passion.
Mm-hmm.
He plays the game with a lot of passion, a lot of enthusiasm, and I think that gets lost this day and age. And I think he does a tremendous job with his versatility and his passion. But the other two, Klay Thompson, we played out in Hawaii in a tournament, and we beat them in the championship game. And at the time, I thought he was a really good player. But I thought
he was at Washington State.
He was at Washington State, yes. And I thought he had a chance to play in the NBA. Thought he was a little bit soft, but he has certainly proven a lot of people wrong with his ability. You knew he was a great shooter, but you got to be more than just a great shooter to play at that level. You got to have a degree of toughness, and he has really shown a lot of that toughness, and I'm just amazed at what he's been able to do and play at that level. And then with Steph Curry, we played them at Davidson as part of the old Bracket Buster.
Mm-hmm.
ESPN used to put together the old Bracket Buster stuff, and we ended up playing Davidson at their place. And we were very fortunate because actually Steph Curry was coming off a sprained ankle. So he was about 95%. So we did a very nice job guarding him. But the ace in our pocket, we had two really good players in Gordon Hayward and Shelvin Mack, who are also both playing in the NBA. So we were able to come out of there with a victory. But Steph Curry, the things that he was able to do on the court, I don't think anybody would predict that he would be an MVP in the league, but you saw some of his intangibles, and his basketball IQ is amazing, and his skill set. So I'm not surprised he's having success, but the success he's having now is just it's unimaginable to me.
Yeah, phenomenal.
Yeah.
Okay, we only got a couple minutes, Coach. We need to get your picks for the Final Four. All three of us picked Kansas, so
I had Michigan State, so yeah.
I do have one bracket with Oklahoma on it.
I have Oklahoma in the Final Four. I just had him losing to
I
Kansas.
did pick one bracket
Well,
with Oklahoma.
My unexpert opinion, I had 0 out of 4 picks in the Final Four, so I'm going to go with Oklahoma beating Villanova. I think that'll be a very exciting game. And I know Oklahoma pounded Villanova the first time. I think it'll be much closer. And then I think North Carolina will figure out a way to make threes against Syracuse's zone. I think you'll get an Oklahoma-North Carolina championship game. And I'm going to root for Oklahoma because I think Buddy Hield, I think that's a really great story. And I think there's something to be said for that group staying together with multiple seniors on that team, and I think that makes a great story.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are solid picks. Yeah.
Solid. And we won't waste anybody's time making our picks for the women's Final Four. It opened wide open. It opened up wide open for them. You know, everybody said, well, maybe Notre Dame,
Baylor.
maybe Baylor, maybe who's the other
Carolina.
South Carolina,
Yeah.
and they're, you know,
They're all gone.
It's either going to be Washington or Syracuse.
Yeah, I think the
Versus
question might end up being by how
How
much.
big.
By how much.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully the Cuse gets in there, our alumnus that's coaching that team.
Yeah.
Can
But yeah,
possibly put something together for
the
Gino.
women's coach at Syracuse took some classes here.
Oh, okay, that's great. Okay.
And I don't know if you know this, but about a month ago, Chuck Person got his bachelor's degree. He had a few classes that
Good for
he
him.
needed
Oh, that's
to
great.
finish up. But I think that says a lot about a guy, because
It does.
he last played, I think, in '85.
Yeah.
And he came back and took the classes he needed. The three of us and a couple other people went up there and presented him with his bachelor's degree
Well, that's terrific.
right before the Ole Miss game.
Okay.
And, it was
Oh,
a
that's
blast.
great. Good for him.
Well, we want to thank everybody for joining us. We want to give a special thanks to Coach Graves. It's awesome to get somebody in here who knows what they're talking about, other than us three talking heads every week. We'll see you again next Wednesday at 11:30 a.m. Central Time. And we hope everybody has a great week in sports. Enjoy the Final Four.